Could Illinois be possibly losing a congressional seat in 2030 because of the latest census data? Also, Governor J.B. Pritzker sounding off on a question about increased Medicaid spending for kids without Social Security numbers. He also sounded off on education choice programs at the federal government and on ICE. So that's what we've got for you here for Illinois in Focus Daily for the Center Square. I'm Greg Bishop, your host each and every morning here as you wake up and get some of the headlines at thecentersquare.com. So get over to the website, thecentersquare.com, and get the newsletter in your inbox each and every weekday morning. National headlines, local headlines, Illinois headlines. Just sign up for the newsletter and you'll get that in your inbox. But here with Illinois in Focus Daily, we focus in on the land of Lincoln. So I appreciate you guys being here, and shout out to all those in the chat room. Good morning. Steady stream of people joining us each morning. Greatly appreciate that. If you can't be here live, you can watch the rebroadcast here on YouTube, but you can also get the podcast. Where you get podcasts, just search Illinois in Focus and you'll be able to find that. All right, so stay tuned. We will get a couple of segments out for you on things happening in the land of Lincoln, starting with population numbers. We looked a bit yesterday at that, but we will revisit and go a little bit deeper here with Illinois in Focus Daily. All right, so be sure to join us each and every weekday morning as we give you the latest in Illinois. Census projections show red states to gain in U.S. House seats and the Electoral College. It is Illinois in Focus Daily with the Center Square. I'm Greg Bishop, and a headline from Andrew Rice at the Center Square focusing in on the census and just exactly what the national trends are showing. So let's take a look here. All right. You got the headline at thecentersquare.com. Several blue states appear set to lose Electoral College votes, while red states will make sweeping gains, according to data from the U.S. Census. Tuesday, the census released that data showing decreased growth in U.S. population, largely due to less international migration. However, analysis of the census data revealed nationwide noteworthy takeaways in domestic migration trends that could affect Electoral College and congressional makeup. Electoral votes allocated on states based on the census. Each state is allocated a number of electoral votes based on the number of U.S. senators and representatives in this state. The District of Columbia gets 3 electoral college votes. The American Redistricting Project estimates Texas would gain 4 seats in 2030 based on recent census data, and Florida would gain 2 seats. On the other end, California is projected to lose 4 seats. North Carolina, Georgia, Idaho, Utah, and Arizona would gain 1 additional seat respectively. However, New York, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Illinois, and Oregon would lose 1 seat respectively. And you've got this chart here from the which organization is this? Carnegie Mellon. There you go. And it just spells out, look at all the different states and what kinds of seats they're going to pick up and what kind of seats they're going to lose. So Illinois could lose up to 2 seats, according to this analysis, come 2030, if these trends continue. So yesterday we looked at some of these numbers, and I want to go through some of them again, and in particular, this is all data from the U.S. Census, and let me make sure we get this viewed in full screen so you can get the totality of these numbers. But you can see here all of the different states and the different numbers, all the data. For Illinois, though, and this is where you can really kind of get a good picture. Net population change for the state. All right. So we did gain population according to the census over the last 3 years. But 3 years before that, you could see just how much of the census data shows the state losing population. I mean, here in 2020, 26,000 people left. In 2021, 91,000 people left. 2022, 93,000 people left. And 2023, we had 23,000 people more, 69,000 more in 2024, and then last year, 16,000 more. So those are the net migration numbers from the U.S. Census. And if you scroll through and look at even more of the data, more of the line items, you come across the international migration in Illinois. And you can really see here the spike in 2024 of 111,121 migrants who came to Illinois from other countries. That offsets the number of people that were moving out. So you can see that trend as well. And it did come down in 2025. We'll see just what 2026 numbers do. But then you look at the domestic migration out of Illinois. So these are all negative numbers. So each year we've had tens of thousands of people move out of the state. And for instance, 149,000 people moved out of the state in 2022. So that's the domestic out migration numbers, because all of those numbers are negative. Again, continuing on, you've got another chart here with state-specific numbers and where people are moving to from Illinois. And here you can see, let's go ahead and get that view in full screen. So we can take in the totality of this, but you could see Missouri, California, Texas, Wisconsin, Florida, and Indiana are all states that are getting Illinois residents. And here in Indiana, for instance, 25,000 people moved from Illinois to Indiana just in the past year. 24,000 people moving to Florida from Illinois in the past year. Wisconsin, 24,000 people moving. So these are just some of the indications as to what's going on with the overall numbers in Illinois. And what else you have is the just overall totals. 40,000 people moved out of Illinois to another state last year. 44,752 moved into Illinois from another country, with births and deaths included. Illinois gained on net 16,108 people last year. Altogether, though, since 2021 and 2020, Illinois is down 76,000 people. So we've actually not gotten back to where we were in 2020. And again, we talked about Governor J.B. Pritzker and his position on this, saying Illinois' increased population 3 years in a row. But again, look at this map of the potential for losing congressional seats. Illinois looking at possibly 2 congressional seats less. Illinois has seemingly every reapportionment has lost a congressional seat. I mean, we used to have 22 seats not long ago. Now what do we got? 17? So could we have 15 seats? And what's going to happen with the maps when those come out in 2030? Is that going to give the Democrats, if they're still in power of the state house, the ability to further gerrymander that to essentially make all of Illinois' congressional seats Democrat-safe seats? I don't know how they're going to do that exactly, but you've seen how they've drawn maps in the past and how that could play out in elections. So clearly, Illinois, looking at population trends and stagnation of population growth, not nearly getting to what we were back in 2020, even though we have more international people coming in than people domestically moving to other states. Clearly, this is an ongoing issue that Republicans will say needs to be addressed through economic reform, through making the business climate more friendly, for making the tax environment less burdensome, addressing the property taxes, for instance, addressing education choice questions. So all of those things Republicans say the state needs to do. Democrats, when approached with the question of the population issues, have said that they need to invest more in education because it's college-age kids who are going to other states and they need to make college more affordable. And they're also talking about healthcare access and things to attract people to Illinois. But is it going to be enough by way of, the question of the economy? Obviously, these are, again, questions that will persist as time progresses. We'll see what next year's numbers give us. So that will be on the docket for us to discuss about this time next year. Actually, later on this year, because the census numbers typically come out right around Christmas. but it was delayed a month. Understandably, there was a 40-day government shutdown, so the census couldn't do their work. So it was delayed by a month. So we did get these numbers a little bit later. Other numbers we'll be looking at is IRS data that should show just how much income tax is leaving the state of Illinois with all those people moving out of the state, and the ongoing question of, well, Illinois wants to tax millionaires more while we've got inbound international migration. Are those people coming into the state making the same or more than the people who are moving out of the state to other states? Big questions, deep analysis. We hope to provide it to you here with Illinois in Focus Daily. All right, it is The Center Square. I'm Greg Bishop. Get the headlines at thecentersquare.com.
That's just an inaccurate. Maybe Lizzie wants to speak to it, but that I don't know. There's nothing like 66 million in the state of Illinois. We only have 13 million people. So no, that's just false.
It's Governor J.B. Pritzker yesterday answering a question from the Center Square's Jim Talamonte about the report we put out earlier this week concerning the increase of Medicaid dollars for children without Social Security numbers. You can find that headline at thecentersquare.com from earlier this week. FOIA reveals 725% increase in Medicaid for Illinois children without Social Security numbers. And we talked with Bailey Templeton for this story, and ultimately what it shows is her FOIA request she received back after working on these questions for a year. She found that in 1 year, there was about $8 million spent in 2021 for about 450 children. But that number in 2025 jumped up to $66 million to care for 1,085 children. Templeton told us earlier this week about what exactly these costs being incurred by taxpayers are for.
Sure. I think it's a wide spectrum of things that could be happening here, and it wouldn't be right for me to say exactly what's happening, but I could say it raises questions about what would be called medical trafficking, where things are conducted onto children when they're too young to be able to consent to these things happening. I can't prove what's happening to these children, but there are reasons that the Nuremberg Code was written the way that it was, and children can't consent to medical procedures. And if they don't have anybody watching out for what's best for them, you never know what could be happening to them. And yes, it is a really dark side, but there are really dark things happening in this country and across the world, and we are all aware of that. And it's very important to bring light to the dark because they can't coexist. So if we continue to shine a light on things that could be harming children, I have hopes that we could solve this and protect more children, whether they are registered Social Security number holders or not. I want to make sure these children are safe.
And when I asked her if this was just to give more fuel to the fire of those wanting to go after non-citizens in the country, Templeton said no, it's because children without Social Security numbers are the most vulnerable, and they need to have transparency on what's happening to them, especially if they can't speak for themselves. So Templeton raising these issues, and seemingly the data that she got from the Pritzker administration shows that 725% increase in the number of dollars going out over the span of 5 years. In 2020, 8 million. In 2025, 66 million. This is what Governor J.B. Pritzker said when the Center Square's Jim Talamonte was in front of him yesterday, asking him, can you explain the 725% increase in Medicaid payment for the cost of $66 million is what ultimately the data shows. And here's Pritzker reacting, seeming to not understand the question.
I know that's just an inaccurate. Maybe Lizzie wants to speak to it, but that I don't know. There's nothing like 66 million in the state of Illinois. We only have 13 million people. So No, that's just false.
It wasn't a question of 66 million people. It was $66 million. And you can see he dismissed the question and then just went off to another question. Again, we reached out to the departments that has these numbers. They did not respond to multiple attempts to get a response, and the governor not really addressing the question either. So the questions still remain, and maybe the governor just needs to be posed the question a little bit more directly. And we'll see if that can happen sometime when he has another news conference. He doesn't have one scheduled today, but ultimately Templeton, who's running for a seat in the state house, Republican primary for the 94th Illinois House district, she says that ultimately Pritzker needs to go because all of this lands on his lap.
I think the taxpayers deserve answers 100%. We are paying for everything that is coming forth through this overpayment system. That's coming from your money that should be going to you and your family directly. I think that state agencies have way too much power and that they have way too little oversight. And this really does fall on the lap of Pritzker. Once again, he is allowing his state agencies to break the law, to break constitutional rights, and to do things that are really obscene and unheard of. And Pritzker's got to go. That's just the bottom line to it. He's got to go. He does not have the morals that it takes to be a governor, to follow the laws and to keep our children here protected.
Now, we do have a gubernatorial election that is happening in November. Pritzker running for a third consecutive term. You've got several Republican candidates on the primary ballot in March that are going up against each other. Darren Bailey, Ted Dabrowski, James Mendrick, Rick Heidner. People will line up to talk to here. Maybe next week we can line those up. But ultimately, again, you've got the governor running. And is this an issue that's going to come up and hit him? We'll see. Another thing, the governor yesterday holding a news conference, and you can find out what exactly that news conference was all about at thecentersquare.com and the Illinois page. If you check that out, you'll see Jim Talamonte's reporting on what the governor was doing yesterday. And he was ultimately expanding access and funding for abortion, but Republicans pushing back about that funding. So what ultimately the governor did, joined abortion advocacy groups in Chicago Wednesday to announce a new fund connecting donor support with organizations protecting and expanding reproductive health care access. But you have State Representative Noreen Hammond saying that Illinois should not use Medicaid dollars to provide abortions. Clearly a lot more debate about that, but Republicans in the minority, and reproductive health care is a big political issue for Democrats. But the governor also being asked about ICE, and he says that ICE is in need of reform. He also discussed how he says that ICE diminishes people's rights here in Illinois.
Who knows
and beyond.
what Tom Homan is now going to be. He was bad from the start. They seem to have moved him away because he seems to have accepted bribes. And now they're moving him back in because that's acceptable in this administration, apparently. So we'll see what happens. But I can tell you that the procedures, the attitude, the methodology, indeed all of what Trump has built at ICE and CBP needs to be thrown out and revamped. And we need to have people who are actually professionally prepared to do law enforcement, and instead of taking away people's constitutional rights. The First, the Fourth, the Fifth, the 10th Amendments, these are all under attack just by ICE and CBP.
Now, a lot of you watching are going to be quick to say, well, what about the Second Amendment rights that Governor J.B. Pritzker has torn apart with the Protect Illinois Communities Act, the ban on semi-automatic firearms and magazines over certain capacities and the registration. But I mean, regardless, the governor talking about rights of free speech, free assembly, warrantless, you're free from having to go through, warrantless searches and such. So he's laying out all those rights as paramount. But again, I'm sure a lot of you watching will just reflect on, now we're at year 3 of the Protect Illinois Communities Act being in place while the judiciary continues to sit on the case before it can be pushed up to the U.S. Supreme Court, which has already indicated they won't take it. But anyways, I digress from the issue of Pritzker talking about ICE. He goes on to say that ICE is costing taxpayers a lot of money.
They're now going to spend a whole bunch of money building up what can only be described as a secret police force at ICE, where they're going to multiply by 7 the amount of money that will go into ICE. That is what now is being debated at the U.S. Senate.
Now, what's going to happen in the U.S. Senate? Well, you got Democrats who are wanting to essentially block that funding for ICE. And that could lead to partial government shutdown after we just had a 40-plus day full government shutdown. So we're going to see a partial government shutdown over the funding for immigration customs enforcement. It's a great question. The governor was asked about something else yesterday as well, unrelated to the news conference he held about access to abortions and dollars being used for that. He talked about, he was asked about the National School Choice Credit Tax Credit Program and whether or not Illinois is going to join that. A lot of other states are joining that. And you've got some reports from various organizations highlighting these things, including from Ballotpedia, of the different types of states that are going on to this U.S. school choice tax credits program. And you can see a map here of just some of the states that have opted in, that have formally opted in, and have taken official action to opt in. A governor has made the call to opt in, and these are all ways that you could opt into that National School Choice Scholarship Program. Now, this is different than the Invest in Kids program that Illinois had for several years, I think from 2018 to 2023, or was it 2024 at the end of 2024? Either way, the program was allowed to expire despite groups, bipartisan groups saying, hey, we need this program. It's helping out kids get out of failing public schools. And it gives a tax credit to those private tax dollars that are being put into school granting, scholarship granting organizations. So these SGOs would take the dollars, people would write off that on their Illinois taxes, and they'd get a tax credit for it. But they let the program end. Right, even though thousands of families were helped with it and schools were thriving because of it, private schools, school choice was thriving in Illinois. It ended because teacher unions pushed back and said it's taking tax dollars away from public schools, even though these were private dollars going into a fund. So Pritzker asked about the national program. That's part of that one big, beautiful bill that President Donald Trump signed July 4th in 2025. It creates this school choice scholarship program nationwide. Now, it's not as generous as the Illinois Invest in Kids program, which I believe was like $10,000 or something, or it was like a certain percentage. It's been so long since it's been in place and we reported on it. It's escaping my mind. You got a healthy tax credit for it up to a certain cap. I mean, it was like millions of dollars. But the national program, not as generous. I think it's like $1,000 tax credit you can get. But states have to opt into the program to be able to take part in it. Pritzker was asked about that yesterday. And here's what he had to say about the possibility of a school choice scholarship national program, Illinois joining.
Nothing's changed. We have not seen any rules that have been put out. Remember, the federal government hasn't put any rules around this program. Those rules, when they're issued, we'll be able to evaluate whether that's good for the state of Illinois and the people of Illinois or not. But until we have that, right, just on its face, the question is this just a repeat of trying to take money out of public schools and move it into private schools, which is what the Trump administration, generally speaking, has been in favor of? Or is this something that could be useful? But we just don't know because there are no rules around it right now. We await that. It was supposed to come out, as far as I understood, those rules were supposed to come out before the end of the year. They still aren't out. So we'll take a look at those and make a decision. The state program, that Invest in Kids program, had its own rules that were written into the legislation. We knew what that was, how that was supposed to be used. We don't know what the federal program will be used for, and that's what we're waiting rules for.
So the rules, are they out? They're going to come out. If they come out and they're good for Illinois, Pritzker says he'll look at joining, and the legislature could also do that as well. Things that may be considered this legislative session as lawmakers come back next month to continue on with spring session. All right, it's Illinois in Focus Daily, each and every weekday morning here. I'm Greg Bishop. Get the headlines in your inbox at thecentersquare.com. All right, that's all I got got for you guys on this Thursday. Tomorrow, join us. We'll have more for you to get ready for next week. And plenty more are going to be flying all over the place, and we'll be watching how it's impacting Illinois. Appreciate you being here. Be sure to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. Share this up with your friends, with your family. Hopefully you are informed and have a better understanding of certain issues that don't necessarily get talked about nearly enough in Illinois media. So we'll do what we can to keep you up to date. I'm Greg Bishop. Have yourself a wonderful day. We'll see you back here tomorrow for more Illinois in Focus Daily, only with the Center Square.